Hi!
Okay.
Things happened,
Yes.
and it wasn't my fault this time. Yay!
Nobody's watching, so we're just going to continue to blame Greg. Um, nope, that's not the right one. Am,
We're back.
am we live? Is there a live button?
I
Nope.
think.
I think so. I'm just not seeing it on our.
That may take a minute. If you are watching, hello. Facebook is live. I see Facebook.
Yeah.
I see Google. Charlie, what's up, man? Thanks for
Hey.
joining.
Uh,
Okay, so
YouTube is taking a dump on itself. Nice.
yeah.
Um, awesome. So, anywho, uh,
If you missed it, we
yeah,
were live a couple of minutes ago, and now we're back with news, everyone. We were talking about EV swaps, and thank you to Jesse for sending 300 stars, and thank you to Justin for sending 500 stars, because those two fine gentlemen supported us on the previous stream, which then ended unceremoniously, and now is back. So what we're talking about are EV swaps, and specifically we're talking about an old truck, because EV swaps have become a little bit easier and a little bit more mainstream for older cars because of how abundant EVs are right now, with different swap kits from Tesla and Chevy, like out of the Bolt, things like that. Nissan, you could probably rip the EV out of an old Leaf, and put it into something. So what I believe Chad found was something really cool. Justin with another 100 stars. Here's some more since this is a new stream. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the support as always. Um, so basically, Chad, kind of take it away here, because I think you found this bit of news. It is about swapping an EV into an old truck, correct?
yeah. So the first real that I know of EV swap kit that I know of is for old like C10s. This is a GMC, but same platform, right? Uh, and
What's up,
effect
Anthony? Thanks for joining.
and effectively what it does is it allows you to take a Tesla dual motor and drop it in the back of the truck, uh, which I've been waiting on something like this for a minute. I think you're going to see more and more of this sort of stuff because, frankly, the Tesla motors happen to be the most plentiful electric motors out there, apart from like the Illuminators from Ford and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that now you have a junkyard, sort of the junkyard LS of the EV world from Tesla. Even though these things aren't necessarily cheap, the kit itself is only $700, which which is
Wait, the
crazy,
swap kit itself is $700?
right? But you still have to buy the motors, the inverters, the you can't jack this thing up and make an electric off-roader. It's a street truck, so it gets slammed. You do have to
Still,
notch
I
the.
mean, an iPhone is $1,000. Like, you can buy basically the batteries for this for less than an iPhone. That's crazy.
Right, and I mean, with companies like EV West, it makes the swaps easier. But
Yeah.
like like Doug, you have to have an old C10 somewhere. I'm just saying, like, you have
Yeah.
a ton of
Yeah.
stuff on the.
Of anyone, Doug
Um,
probably has one.
Doug goes, so is the kit just stickers? Uh, Actually, no. So if we go, basically the kit bolts to the frame of the truck, which must be drilled, notched to accommodate the new hardware. Um, don't have to weld, but you're notching the frame, so weld it. Um, but like I was saying, right? Like you end up with a truck that's kind of low.
Yo, that looks good.
You have to get new wheels, new tires, new brakes. So based because obviously all the bolt patterns and stuff are different. But the upshot is that now you don't have to do. Someone else did all the research. You now can do this easier than it was before. And not for nothing, I dig the hell out of it because this stuff is going to happen more and more, and the fact that it's becoming quote unquote easier is cool to me. Now, don't get me wrong, I love slapping a big fat LS up there and calling it a day, but I think with certain vehicles, EV swaps could be pretty cool. Like a Volvo 240 wagon, for example,
Yeah.
that could be a really cool EV
hell
swap.
yeah. And I think a big thing with this sort of thing is, most what's the I'll ask you, Chad. What's the biggest complaint about EVs across the internet compared to an internal combustion engine that has nothing to do with automotive enthusiasm? It has to do with like consumerism. So what's the biggest complaint about EVs?
Lack of noise.
Not automotive enthusiasm, I said.
Lack of charging stations.
That sort of plays into it. But it's range anxiety, right? Like everyone's like, oh, EVs, they don't have the same range as ICEs. And by and large, they don't, especially in cold weather. That's been proven time and time again, right? So with this is actually a really cool thing because EVs are cool in the sense that you get instant torque, you get performance in cars that that shouldn't rightfully have performance, right? Like the Tesla Model S is a big, heavy sedan. It should not have the performance it has, right? But because it's an EV, you get that instant torque, that crazy speed. And you can repurpose old cars with this and make it a second or third car. And that range anxiety kind of goes out the window because you're not using it as your main source of transportation, right? You're not trying to make this your daily. Some people might daily this, sure, but it's not one of those things where you're EV swapping an old GMC or a Chevy, C10 or whatever, and expecting that to be your daily driver. Like that, most people that are going to do this, that won't be a thing for them. So what I think is this actually is even a more amazing test case for EVs because it eliminates one of the biggest things for consumers as the range anxiety, because you don't need it. The range is out the window for something like this, which is awesome. So, the no noise is still a factor. Obviously, if you're an enthusiast doing the swap, you're not going to have the noise of a big LS swap. But this is a really interesting alternative to not wanting to source an LS motor, fabricate stuff. Do a whole bunch of work that maybe doesn't necessarily. This might be a cheaper option for both swapping and long-term use with gas prices and what have you, and charging and things like that. So this is a really interesting scenario. Chad seems very perplexed right now. Yeah, you're fine. Chad is leaving, but as Chad goes, I think there's something going on in his house. But this is a really interesting sort of test case, and I will get to chat while he sort of handles his business. Andrew, hey guys, had to come on YouTube. The Facebook app is having issues. Yeah, we had some technical issues actually on our end. It wasn't Facebook. You can go back to Facebook if you'd like. Whatever. Just because it's not just you. We had some issues with Skype and what have you, which is how we go through everything. Charlie over on YouTube. Funny enough, I was on a project for my college to shove an AC motor into a K2500 Silverado. Sort of the same scenario here in a way. You're trying to basically just shove EV battery packs and everything needed into an old truck, and sort of a similar, EV hot rod thing, if you will. Woo. A little bit of lightning. I may have to shut my garage door in a few minutes. But let's see. Let's go back to Facebook. I think you guys have been a little chatty. Let's see. We got some thunder. As soon as Chad's back, I'm going to close my garage door. Let's see. Doug, I want to EV swap half my fleet. If I could hot swap the battery between them, that would be even better. There are actually stations in, I forget what Asian country it was that I saw. I want to say, I think it was China or Japan. I want to say Japan, where taxis, or EV taxis, basically, they go onto a platform and they sort of like drop out the battery and put a new one in underneath. Honestly, if they need a new battery, and that's sort of, I think what you're saying is you can sort of hot swap the batteries back and forth, which would be really cool. And I think there is a way to do that, but it's just ruinously expensive because it's not like a phone battery. You can't like pop it in and out and things like that. So that is something that we can potentially do. Oh, chat is not sharing anymore. Wonder if something happened. Either way, I will continue to go through chat. Here we go. Let's see. What do we got here? Where was I? I lost my place. Doug has no old Chevy. That can't be that different. The Ford trucks, plus then it will look better. Depends on what you think. I think some of those old Chevys look really cool, but to each their own on that. Charlie over on Facebook. Charlie, you're everywhere. I still like the engine swap aspect of EV swaps. Yeah, I think it's really cool. And Andrew sending 100 stars. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. Good sir. Charlie, take a C40 driveline and shove it into a 240. C40 driveline and shoving it into a 240 would be really interesting, but there's no real way to do that right now. What Chad was just sharing is basically the LS swap of EVs essentially. So that would be a better opportunity than to re-engineer a C40. And C40s don't really necessarily have a great they don't have a great range compared to Tesla batteries yet. I still think they're like 50 to 100 miles under the range limit for Tesla. So Teslas are probably a little bit of a better use case at that point. But if someone figures it out, that would be really cool to keep it to Volvo, obviously. Doug, we did our first battery swap at our dealer. The battery only cost $6,000, and then there was a 25. Wow, why does it keep jumping like that? I can't read this when it keeps jumping. Then there was a $2,500 core charge. Prices are on their way down. That actually is a little bit less than I thought it would be. So that's very, very good. Yeah, Chad hopping in chat. His dog literally decided to drop a steaming hot doggy deuce all over their upstairs hallway. Yes, wonderful. So I'm here to entertain you until Chad is back dealing with doggy dookie. Let's see. Here we go. What else do we got? Doug, most of us don't use the range of our gas tanks most days either. Though, of course, for some people it matters. For most people, it doesn't nearly as much as people imagine. Yeah, that's very much true. And that's sort of, in the enthusiast community, the biggest thing about EVs is, excuse me, they're heavy and there's no noise. Those are the two things that are really holding a lot of people back, and part of what's holding sort of me back as well. We would be a really good use case for EVs. I basically just use this to go pick up my kids and make videos. So for me, an EV would make a lot of sense because most of what I do and drive around for is within 10 to 15 miles. So I don't really need lots of range. We have another car that sits right here where I am streaming from, my wife's XC90, that we use for long trips and doing things like that. That would be good for internal combustion, right? We wouldn't need an EV essentially for long term or long range drive because we have the internal combustion engine for that and blah, blah, blah. So if it was me, the EV use case makes a lot more sense for what I do. However, I'm an enthusiast and I want the noise, and that's why I have this, because this makes a wonderful noise and I don't want to give it up for an EV. Now, if I could have 2 or 3 or 4 cars, my daily would absolutely be an EV because I'd be dropping off my kids. I would be doing little, puttery errands around town. I work from home, so there's no need for me to really do things. Plus, the other three cars or two or three cars that I'd have would all be internal combustion. So I could kind of have the enthusiast bit with having the benefits of an EV bit, right? That I would be the perfect case for an EV scenario in, suburbia, essentially. But that's not what we're doing quite yet, because we don't have a charger here. EVs are also still very expensive. It's out of our budget, and yada yada yada. So there's all these other factors at play. Plus, I want the noise, and I don't have the money for two or three cars. Ain't got no gas in it. Charlie, see, I think a hybrid swap would be very neat for a lot of cars. But hybrid swaps are a little bit harder because you're working with both internal combustion and batteries. Whereas, like, if just the swapping ICE or EV, you're only utilizing one mode of propulsion at that point. So you're not really. You don't have to reverse engineer or re-engineer a lot of stuff. It kind of just goes in and you do it. That's it. Hybrid swaps would be really cool until hybrids become a more popular mode of transportation, which I'm not sure if they ever will. Then we'll have to see. I don't think we're going to see more of them. Not wanting an LS motor. Valid reason for any alternative. Hey, I want an LS motor swap. I'd love an LS swap. That'd be great. Let's see. Andrew, Volvo is still at the dealership, and then Chad talked about his dog pooping everywhere. Anthony will be home in approximately 20 minutes. Cool. And yes, Charlie has an event coming up in July. It's basically a drive around the area. I haven't had a chance to look into it, but I did get your messages, Charlie, so thank you for those. And that's pretty much it. So we're all caught up on chat, and I think Chad is still dealing with doggy poopy. So I'm going to take a sip of my juice. Oh, that is a crisp and refreshing juice made with lots of hops. I love hop juice. Hop juice is wonderful. Barley hop juice is great. Really wonderful. So, with that said, starting to rain and getting stormy over here again. And I have a text from my wife. Sorry, I just do need to talk to my wife because I don't know if you guys know, or you probably do know, but I have two young kids, and we're sort of nighttime potty training the second one. The first one's great. He's crazy. He's slept through the night without peeing the bed since he was 3, which is pretty insane. The younger one, he is 3. He's going to be 4 in less than a month, and we sort of got a later start with him. So we're still like checking him at intervals during the night, and anyone with kids will know you kind of got to like train them. They don't just stop peeing the bed. That's just not a thing. And he's out of trainers and diapers, and we don't want him in those anymore. So we're still checking him at night. So I got to text my wife, like, who's doing what? Check. So I'm going to do the 10:30 check, and she's going to do the 1 a.m. check. We just check him twice. Then it'll go down to 1, and then hopefully he'll hold the rest of the night. So that's why I'm texting my wife and not talking to you guys. So please hold for 10 seconds. Okay. That has now been handled. We are good. I'm taking the 10:30p shift. Anyway, let's see. Steve, you missed nothing. Technical difficulties, Chad's dog pooping everywhere, and that's really it. And then me ranting about EVs and talking to chat. Yada, yada, yada. Let's see.
Anybody want a free dog?
Hello, Poop Smith. How are you doing?
Stupid fucking thing.
Dude, I I have a dog that is mine and one that isn't mine in my house, and both of them are old. Both of them pee and poop in my house basically every other day. So I'm totally hear you on the pooping everywhere. At this point, I've become numb to it. So my only question was it explosive doggy diarrhea?
Thank God, not this time. But like,
Okay.
he just
Well, do I have a story for you then?
well, this time no. About a week and a half ago, yes. Apparently, the little fuckers.
Where did your dog have the explosive diarrhea? Because I'm
Same spot,
fairly
hallway.
certain I can beat you.
I mean, yes. It was a hallway, and now I fucking don't walk in that hallway barefoot.
Does your hallway have carpeting?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's not great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have hardwood floors, but about 4 or 5 years ago, and I will literally never forget this because I will never forget the smell, no matter how bad COVID has messed up my sense of smell and taste. Um, my dog got sick. Don't know how. Maybe she ate a bug. Walked up to the top of my stairs one night, come after being ready to go into her kennel for the night because you used to sleep in our room, right? Up to the top of the stairs, turned around, and literally had diarrhea down the stairs. So it was about 7 or 8 stairs of just cascading dog diarrhea. And the smell is a smell I will never forget. It is one of the most disgusting things ever. Ooh. Actually, speaking of smell, I believe there's a skunk outside. I'm going to go close my garage. Hold on 1 second, please.
Oh, never a dull moment, ladies and gentlemen. Never a dull moment. Yeah, that sounds awful. I'm nobody is, but like that. It's like I don't know how to put this, but like, really makes me want to give the little fucker away. Yeah, well, we do. It's just I don't. We do, Steve. I just the frequency at which it's happening is infuriating. Anywho, we've had Spenny in your small camper. It was everywhere. Mark, that sounds awful. And I will now be boycotting your camper.
Yeah, I was in that camper. I feel like
Wait, are we blaming a dog or was it actually Greg?
I didn't feed the dog spicy hot dogs.
I'm not talking about the intake. I was talking about the exhaust.
Oh. Yuck City.
Uh-huh.
Anyway. Tonight is the shit special. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's get off of this topic.
Yes.
We've talked about the EVs. The other topic that we wanted to talk about, and then we'll get to Anthony's topic from the supporter group, was there's news out of Formula One, and it's very cool because if you've heard or followed sports kind of at all, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll say McElhenney, from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You know who Ryan Reynolds is. I don't really need to say what he's been in. They, a couple of years ago, bought Wrexham FC, which is a soccer club over in the UK. Now, what they've done is they've combined into an investment group with another very famous person, Michael B. Jordan, and I'm sure other people, and they've bought a stake in Alpine F1, which is really cool. And there's more on top of that because Alpine will be now coming to the United States in 2026, 2027, because they will be having cars here in the US. And that news literally came out an hour after the F1 investment. So my conspiracy theory brain said that there's a big old car connection here. And I think that that's the case. So I think because of these giant US based names, that this negotiation has been going on for like probably the past 6 months to 18 months, I would imagine, because these things don't happen very quickly normally. And about 3 or 4 months ago, there were rumblings of Alpine coming to the US. So I really wonder if these two things sort of have a hand-in-hand connection.
I'm gonna go as far as say that's not a conspiracy theory. I think that's 100% on purpose.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking
I
too.
mean,
I don't think there's
it's.
much
Let me put it
conspiracy
to you this way,
there.
right? Like Alpine entering the U.S. market, which is auto manufacturer entering this market that I couldn't begin to give any sort of crap about. But
Flying mini Fs.
but I'm guessing that as part of the deal, there's going to be some brand marketing. I mean, just look. What the hell is it? What is it? Mint Mobile, which Ryan Reynolds is a big part of. You know, look at what
Yep, he
Aviation
owns
Gin
that.
did, like with his
Yep.
involvement, and like I again, right? Like it's one thing to have someone be a shill for your product. It's another thing to give them ownership in the top flight of the motorsport, which is Formula One. But I'm
Yes.
almost there's got there to me they have to be connected in some way. Like Alpine wanted to get into the U.S. market. Uh, Potentially, I don't know if the team was actively selling. I didn't hear anything about it, but I got to imagine like you know these guys, Ryan Reynolds, McElhaney, all those guys, they've made it no secret that they're looking to get into more sports.
Yeah.
And I think when they came with it, there was a deal that was struck to say, hey, we'll give you X, maybe not the full boat that they were hoping for or something like that, but the group approached Alpine's like, hey, we're interested in buying some of it. And they're like, hey, we're about to launch in the United States. Let's do the business. And,
Yeah. I think that's a big thing to do with it.
and look, like I said, Alpine was probably coming to the States regardless. I think this is huge for them. Just it's a it's a different little take on traditional marketing, right? Like these guys have stake in the motorsport division, which is not cheap. But I
No.
think their market, I
Hundreds of
think their
millions.
marketing is set to, you know, take a. It's going to be a little. It's going to be different to traditional, and I think that's what Alpine kind of needs because when people think Renault or French cars, they think Le Car, which was an unmitigated, pile of what my dog just did upstairs. So I think it's cool. I think it's awesome to see this. Like on the exact opposite side of it, it's like Lewis Hamilton has stake in the Denver Broncos. You know,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I think it's cool to see this sort of cross pollination. And not for nothing, having more United States involvement is huge considering F1's involvement in the United States, 3 races, the success of Drive to Survive, although I got to imagine, just like Formula One's ratings, it's taking a massive, uh, it's tanking massively just because of the way this season is playing out. But keeping American
Yeah.
fans interested is huge until they figure out that, ah, crap. We've talked about it on stream multiple times. The dominance of Red Bull, and how we think it came about, and
Yeah.
how
Well, I mean, this is what happens at the end of every major rule change in F1, right? You have people that you have a team that kind of hits the ground running, dominates the first couple of seasons, and then people start to catch up. And right at the end of the rule change, there's sort of a couple teams on equal footing, and then there's a rule change, and someone figures it out again. And then this is sort of what always
Right.
happens, and this is what happened with
This
Mercedes.
is what
And
kind.
now it seems Red Bull has that. So
Right. There again, not to go down a rabbit hole we've gone down before on this stream, but the
yeah,
difference this time is that the team cheated their way to dominance and got a slap on the wrist because of it.
well, right,
This was something that could have been more so than in years past nipped to an extent, and the FIA decided to just nah. Uh, Here's your fine. We're going to take away a little bit of your wind tunnel and your testing and your budget, but the damage is already done. You built a world-beating car. Red Bull could literally not make an update to that car and still be top of the charts for the rest of this season and even next season.
yeah,
Like they've already like figured it out. So
yeah,
that's a long-winded way of saying that having a Ryan Reynolds involved in Formula One is huge for Formula One just because of the
yes,
that those guys made a mid-tier, nobody gave a shit about soccer team a fan favorite.
yeah, that's true.
So they'll probably have a similar effect. I'm torn on this because I am a big fan of these guys, big fan of Ryan Reynolds and all these guys. I detest the French in motorsport. It's you just do Google research on FIA, the ACO, and all the dumb shit they did in years past to, you know, play an agenda
Yeah.
and play favorites and all this other sort of stuff. I hope Alpine just becomes a Nissan team and I don't have to think about the French connection anymore.
I hope it just becomes. I hope it's more just Alpine because no one knows what it is, and Renault and yada yada yada. They sort of just go away. And I understand it's like sort of the same company, but it's not. Alpine is its own company, basically.
What
It's
engines do they
not.
use?
It's
It
they use. I mean, they use Renault engines, sure.
it's it's like if AMG branched off and didn't wasn't calling themselves Mercedes anymore. It would be like
They did do that.
okay, thank you for making my point even better. I appreciate
No, I
that.
know, but like it sure, but the engine isn't the problem there. It's
Right.
the governing body and those that run it. That's the problem.
Right. Well, I mean, just
Because
name me
the
I'll put it to you this way. There hasn't been an interesting French car in damn near my lifetime.
the Espace F1.
Okay, it's still a
They
hideous.
shoved an F1 motor into a minivan.
Toyota made a mid-engine minivan that they actually sold to the public.
Yes, but that wasn't an F1 engine.
Okay.
That was a run-of-the-mill shitty engine.
Right, and someone else made a one-off of a cargo van that was actually basically a top fuel drag. Or I'm not sorry, a funny car underneath. Someone made a Camry that was a
Sure.
funny car. Like these one-off.
Sure, but my point is they do make interesting cars. It's not like everything's bad.
Everything is terrible.
Everything is not
Okay,
terrible. If we
outside of shoehorning a Formula One engine, which was developed in England, I might add. Uh, Go, please.
I mean,
Chat,
the
you're welcome
Alpine
to chime in.
A110.
I'm not. This is one of those hills I'm dying on. I don't even want to hear.
Dude, the Alpine A110 is a great sports car.
It is.
It really is.
It is. It's like they.
No one said it was. No one said it was attractive. It's that. It's still a great sports car. It's lightweight. It's basically the Alpine A110 is the continuation of the Alpha 4C.
Let me back you up a few steps here. No,
I knew that would trigger you so badly.
I mean, first of all, it's made out of metal. The 4C is carbon. Uh,
Well, not the whole thing, only the tub.
right. But that's what I'm saying. Like
The rest of it's metal.
carbon fiber tub is huge. Like
Yes, I know.
it's worlds apart. That's like sitting here and saying a carriage made out of wood is identical to mass-produced cars in the early days. Light years up. That's like comparing them. That's just like saying, you know what? A Morgan is the same as a 4C because it uses naturally occurring elements in its frame design, i.e., wood. Like, no. And not for nothing, if you want a mid engine, 4-cylinder, fun sports car, you get a Cayman. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, you do get a Cayman here in the U.S. because we don't have the A110.
and we're better for it.
I mean, I would say that that's not true.
Look, the
Because
second that
would you rather have another crossover or an actual fun lightweight 4-cylinder sports car?
I'd like to see what someone could do with making a crossover interesting before I get an Alpine.
But they have. They've done that. They made the CHR. They made a Toyota CHR race car, and that's cool. But you can't buy that.
Nissan
Like,
put a GTR drivetrain in a Juke. While we're on the topic of
Well,
fucking
right, exactly.
insanely
But these are all,
stupid vehicles,
sure, yes, but these are all like one-off examples. These aren't like
That's
actual production.
what I'm
examples.
saying. But like, here's the thing. Okay, it's a sports car. Where's the third pedal? Because that thing doesn't make a shit ton of power. That's the perfect thing. It's I don't know. To me, that car is like a hey, we can make this. Okay, well, enthusiasts want We are French. No. You get automatic transmission, turbo 4-cylinder, and an ashtray because you best be smoking in it. Like, it's that car doesn't. That is.
Hang on, I gotta look this up because I don't think the A110 is automatic.
It's 100%. Like, it might even be dual clutch.
My God, are you guys hearing this rain in the background of my video? Good Lord.
No, but I'm hearing the rain
Oh wow,
through my
it
head.
does not have a manual transmission. That's stupid. I take everything back I said. That car is shit. Anyway, I'm glad we don't have it.
That's like putting an automatic in a Miata. Like,
Yeah, I agree with that. Because that sort of hits the nail on the head, right? That's the essence of the A110, lightweight sports car. What's the Miata? A lightweight convertible sports car. You want the freaking manual. You don't want the automatic in a Miata. Like, that's ridiculous.
right. And
I
like,
mean, yeah.
and now
that's
you're
dumb.
saying we're all about performance, and there's a crap. Look, will there be people who buy that? Yes. Will there be people who get like one because of the celebrity connection to it? Absolutely. Is it like I said? It's arguably the vehicle with the most potential interest that France has produced since the 205.
I was gonna say probably Peugeot 205,
You know,
the GTI.
so like, look, this is gonna come across anti-Frenchist, and it's not. It's just I've just never we've never had their cars for good reason, by the way. And
Well,
I do understand.
we have had their cars, but when we did, they were all trash.
Right. It's just this again. It's not a pretty car. It's
No.
they could have done something with this and they didn't because it's like so like the Dodge Challenger is a great representation of taking a classic and modernizing it. Right. I think we're all in agreement. You, me, Hanson. That is the best looking of the pony cars or modern muscle, right?
Definitely.
You know, Aston has sort of had this timeless shape. Porsche has had this timeless shape. But there's certain cars that you can't you can't, like a small European mid-engine little rally thing. You can't really do in today because you have to have the headlights a certain height. It has to meet crash rate, like all good things, but at a certain point you reach. Maybe we just do a modern interpretation, like the Ford GT is another perfect example. How many cracks did Ford take at cashing in on the GT40 success before they finally made a Ford GT, and all they did was hit enhanced by 15%, literally everywhere, with the exception being
pretty much.
It's
I mean,
want it to be good.
I
I like the idea of it, but like I just for the money there are just so many better options, and you only get. It's not like people who get Volvos to be different, right?
Yeah.
Because Volvo has some creds behind it, especially your car, the R's,
right,
like the C30 and stuff.
Right.
It, and this does have some stuff to back it up, but at the end of the day, it's still like a tiny 4-cylinder with a turbo strapped to it, and I would sooner get a GR Corolla than this.
I would totally agree with that. The GR Corolla is a fantastically more interesting car. I only like the Alpine A110 because to me it looks cool in the sense of a throwback because it was modeled after the old one that was produced in, I want to say, the 60s.
Yeah, it was an old little.
Yeah,
it was a little
rally
car.
It was an old rally car. Yeah, like to me that's a cool looking little car, quite frankly.
That's because there's an accent above the E in your name.
What's that?
You only say that because there's an accent above the E in your name. Look at this side profile.
I mean, the old one's awesome. I love that.
Okay. I just wanted to open. Look at that side.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, let's do the A pillar, the B pillar, the C pillar. Oh crap, we have to put a windshield in.
I don't know, but that's the old one. I like that. I think that's a cool old car. Like, if I saw that at a Cars and Coffee, I would go bananas because they just basically don't exist here in the United States. But, like, I would say it's a better looking older car than it is newer car, for sure. And, like, you can obviously see, like, there's styling from the newer one that harkens back to the old one, for sure.
Right, like the idea of let's make a vertical C pillar and then have a swooping back glass.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely an aesthetic that's not for everyone. But the thing is, like, the biggest problem with this is the price point, because the price point is basically on par with a Cayman, as well as a Lotus. Like, for the same money, you could have a Lotus Evora, or the newer one, the Lotus Evira? Elvira? What's the new one that's not the Evija, the like big EV, the crazy one?
I'm going to default to your expertise here because.
Yeah, hang on, I can tell you. Lotus.
Yes, they are, Anthony. They headlights.
Emira. Lotus Emira is the new one, which is quite frankly a gorgeous car. The Evora was always sort of hit or miss for people, but the Emira is just really fantastic looking. But the A110 is definitely, like, it's not in the same league as a Cayman. I'm not a fan of the Cayman as far as styling is concerned, but the Cayman's better looking than the A110.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of.
Yeah,
I've never been a fan of the what you call it, the Cayman styling. It's gotten better throughout the years. I think the GT4 is actually a good looking.
Just gonna say that.
Like, I've never been a big fan of them, but like I would, if you said I could only have one of these two cars, it would be that, hands down.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, here's the thing, right? I think these guys getting involved in F1 is a positive. I think here's the thing. if this thing comes over to the States and a bunch of blind, blithering idiots buy them, someone we actually like might actually make a car like this. That's like we might see a return to like an MR2 from
Sure.
Toyota or something.
Yeah, that would actually be a really interesting test case because I think as much as we don't necessarily like this car, and I don't dislike the car, I think it's interesting, but not something I would purchase. But to the point of like having more small sports cars in the market, I would love to see this here in the States for that exact reason that you just mentioned. Because if people start buying them or being interested in them, it makes people think, oh, well, maybe Toyota should make a new MR2. And then the rumblings start to happen. And then they do, because Toyota recently has seemed to be very much interested in giving the enthusiasts what they want. And there's literally evidence to that. They make a manual Supra now. And they said at the beginning, if enough people bitch and whine and moan and want this, we will make it. And they did. So if this comes to the States, or if Toyota wants to combat this or whatever it is that comes about next, an MR2 might not be a bad scenario.
Yeah, and like try to put a positive spin on it. I understand that I may have just gone on a tangent and nuked Hanson's ability to test drive one of these things in the future.
That's fine. He's not us. We all have opinions.
Yes.
Meh.
Part of those rants is the reason why I don't do reviews anymore, because I was a little too honest. I'm not. Hold on. Let me back up. That's not to say Hanson is not honest with the reviews, but like I would fixate on what I didn't like too much, versus where Hanson would say what he's not a big fan of, but he will also focus that cars can do good things.
Yeah, he focuses more on what a consumer would want as opposed to an enthusiast would want, which is what you would do, right? Because you're more enthusiast focused, where he is an enthusiast that happens to be commuter or consumer focused, which is, it's a good juxtaposition to have.
I agree.
And I will be right back, so be entertaining.
No.
Yes. Okay, I gotta go.
Alrighty. All right, chat, and now for something. I doubled the weight of that car, Cave Bear, on Tricycle Visions. I think I like where your head's at. I don't know. Anywho. And now for something completely different. 12 Lamborghinis. This is the new Lamborghini. Steve, don't worry about it, man. Do you? As someone who gets migraines, you need to go lay down, dark room, whatever. Do you, man? Whoa, those almost look very expensive. Hold on. that Transit almost. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Countachs are great poster cars, and you love them, you love them. Hopefully you don't have to reverse anymore. Nick goes, they've announced two Teslas in Colorado with Wake Dead. That's only a Lamborghini should ever do. Yeah, feel better, Steve. Have a good one, man. Yeah, Andrew, I mean, never, it always sucks to have your car elsewhere. Not driving it. Definitely feel you there. And now Greg.
I just find it so funny when car companies put like camouflage on cars. Like that last shot of what the hell is that thing called again? The Lamborghini what?
Revuelto?
Oh, Revuelto.
Yes.
Yeah, that Revuelto. The last shot you had up, and it had like, or in that video, it had like on the hood, it had sort of like a 3/4 diagonal freaking camo sticker on it. Some of these companies do the dumbest shit with their camo, and it's just so funny. Like, people are gonna figure it out, man. Don't even bother with the camo anymore. Just here's the car. Or do the mule thing. Put a freaking Aventador body on it. You're a Lamborghini. You know you can do that. You just had the Aventador for like 75 years straight. Like, you know how to put an Aventador body on your next car. And I'm sure they did that in the beginning with like mules and stuff, but like, just leave it on. Then give us the body. Everyone's gonna figure out what the hell it is. The camo is not fooling anyone.
Right, but what it does
it's so funny and stupid to me.
What it does do is build hype. Because it's out in the wild. Then it's out in the wild with less camo. Then it's out in the then it's debut like it allows it's a marketing tool more than it is a don't steal my tech, because frankly anything that competes with, they're going to be able to do the same aero trickery.
It's
just the way it is.
What's going to be faster? That or the Ferrari SF90 that has been out for a couple of years? It's going to be the Ferrari.
Right. Well, Lamborghini's always been about, and this goes back to Doug's like Countach thing. Now, Lamborghinis are more performance driven than they've ever been. Back when, other than they were like, all right, well, let's put a V12 in a poster car. What if people want to back up? Well, those peasants don't need to buy our cars. You know, like it was never. Today's Lambos are very, very performance oriented, but there's still that sense of Lamborghini-ness of, you know, it's got to look good.
Yeah,
you get, and not for nothing, modern Ferraris are hideous.
Yeah, it's got to be wild, but also attractive,
right.
Which is basically Lamborghini's MO.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's not just modern Ferraris. A lot of old Ferraris are stupendously ugly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the 360 is not an attractive car. The 430 also not an attractive car. They're okay looking. They're cool. They're not good looking cars. The 458 is an all timer for sure. The 488 doesn't look as good as the 458. What was the one after that? The F8 Tributo does not look as good as either of those other two. The SF90 is fantastically hideous. They have the Purosang, which is basically just a Mazda CX-30 at this point.
Puro sangue,
Purosangue.
which means purebred
That's
in Italian, which is hysterical. But I digress.
yeah, purebred what?
Purebred
Purebred
SUV. Duh.
pure
Get it?
a purebred Mazda. It's so ugly. Um, I'm very much of the mindset of Jay Leno. Like, he won't own Ferraris for a certain reason. I won't own Ferraris either. For that, most of them are ugly.
Well, no.
I
Like
don't I
first
don't
of all,
like them.
Ferrari has became almost Germanic in their philosophy of make it faster, we'll figure the rest out. Like Ferraris used to have an elegance, a purposeful design before like performance meant, you know, Enzo
I
Ferrari
think
famously said aerodynamics is for people who can't build engines, right?
I think certain Ferraris are still very beautiful. The F12, before it became the F12 TDF and then the A12 Superfast. The A12 is too far. I think the F12 Berlinetta is a beautiful modern Ferrari. It had one of the coolest design elements I've ever seen in a modern car is in the rear where it had that sort of like that sort of down slope. Bring up the rear of, if you can, bring up just a picture of like back end Ferrari F12 and put it on screen. Like, to me, that's one of the best modern rear ends of a car ever. It's just very, 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 very beautiful to me. Um, the 458 Italian, that's another one. That is just gorgeous. Um, but like a lot of the other stuff is it's just not attractive. Um, and like, I mean, the other one that I can really think of that was a beautiful modern Ferrari is the 355, but I would never ever own one due to how horrible they are to own. Not that I would ever have the money to do so, but if I did have the money to do so, I'd never own a 355. I would much rather have something else. Yeah, like that to me, that is a beautiful modern Ferrari. The the single light with that sort of down. You see what I'm saying? Like in the middle, that sort of down swooping like design element. I love that. I think it's gorgeous. I think that's a really nice back end for a modern Ferrari. Like the 599, horribly ugly. The 612, even more ghastly.
Well, the
Like
612 is another example of Ferrari trying to make a 2+2 and failing horrifically. It's just what they
mhm.
do with that.
Exactly. Like, to me, that this car right here is the most beautiful modern Ferrari, right? To me, at least.
I mean, definitely in the last
Maybe
like
the
20 years.
458. Maybe the
458's
458
very,
is
very
up there.
close. But no, like Ferrari's gone down this thing of performance at any cost, and the cost is aesthetics. Like Ferrari used to make beautiful cars. They don't really do
Yeah.
that anymore. Um,
Yeah. Hey Nate, what's up? Thanks for joining, man. Interesting one there. The Ferrari FF was the closest thing to a wagon they've made. I like the Ferrari FF, but it's not a traditionally beautiful car because it's just a big clown shoe, which is cool, and I love that. I would own a Ferrari FF or a GTC4 Lusso like that. If I had the cash, that would be so cool to have, especially in V12 guys in either one of those. I think they're cool looking, and they're unique enough that I would love to have one. Um, but they're not beautiful. They're not beautiful cars. The F12 to me is a beautiful car.
right. I mean, I don't actually hate the super fast, but like it's a little much.
Yeah, it's sort of to me it's an over designed F12.
Right. It's where you've gotten to such a degree where performance has become such a target that it you've made a car that people. I mean, don't get me wrong. Every single Ferrari has a performance envelope that the person who owns it cannot approach. But like The
Correct.
super fast is on like another level.
Yes.
With how every review says this is great to drive, but it's like crazy snappy throttle response, crazy responsive steering, brakes that are like you breathe on them and your face comes off. Like all the things you want in I don't know, a race car. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and it kind of it's I don't mean to make it about my car, but in a lot of respects, I'm learning that it's one thing to have a shit ton of power. It's another thing to be able to use it. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to use it. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, I would like to hear my engine at pretty decent RPMs on the street and not be going triple digits.
Oh, you got to keep it in first gear.
Yeah, if I'm not getting traction in second, what do you think first is going to do?
You just got to really roll into it. You just be like, you just got to really go very slowly. You got to drive it like a Prius now. You got to go very slow,
No.
just to be able to hear that.
I mean, not for
engine
nothing.
RPM.
Not for nothing. Like, the few times it has kind of done the what is it the eat on me, it's been crazy manageable. But wider tires, coilovers, because I think the lowering springs on that
Yeah.
thing are not helping the yeah, it's pretty much, if I wanted to, Nate, burnouts all the time. Like I could probably do, as long as I could navigate, I could make my old commute to the golf course I used to work at. And as long as I got the drift out of the main development right, I could do a standing burnout to there. Or not a standing
I
burnout,
would
but a rolling
give
burnout.
you. I would love to see that happen, and I would give you $100 American to do so.
Okay, where are you going to come up with the rest of the bail money?
I reiterate, I would give you $100 American to do so.
But yeah, so like, pending how the next few months go, that's probably the winter project for the Mustang this year is suspension, new wheels, new tires.
Yeah.
Because I could fit as big as I think a 335 on the back without having
God.
to make any sort of like rolled fenders or anything like that.
It's so funny that you can fit my tire plus an entire tire of a BMW i3 on your car. A 100 plus 235. Actually, mine are 245s, and I think the i3 is a 90. So that makes sense. So yeah, you can fit my car plus another car's tire as your rear tires.
And I do want to keep 19-inch wheels. Thank you, Mark, or thank you, Anthony, for the bail money. I appreciate that.
Yes, the star is amazing.
That, but like,
Best.
someone mentioned our 888Rs. That's one of them. Because the problem is
They're
that
fine.
I, right now I'm finding out that 325, 335, 295s in the same tire compound is findable. 285, 325 is not. That's the biggest problem I run into is that getting the same compound on all four corners. That's why
Yeah.
I have the tires I do. But we'll see. Because, like, man, I want to get it to the track, but, like, I don't want to be pussyfooting it on it. I don't want to, like, scare
Right.
the crap out of myself in third gear, approaching at, like, 90, borderline
Yeah.
100 mile an hour. So we shall see.
There's one thing to have the car, and the other thing to like, not necessarily know how to drive it because you know how to drive it, but it's to drive it to the 9 or 10 tenths that it should be driven at in certain places, like
Right.
the strip.
Well, it's like that
But
sort of stuff.
learning how to do that is sort of the next step with
Right.
with getting the right setup, of course.
So, like, Well, 100%. So like a lot of it is like, you know, the clutch engagement on it, like between the way the clutch engages and disengages, the throttle response, and the new shifter. I used to
Yeah.
be, you know, power off, clutch down, change gear, power on, and it was all pretty seamless. Now I'm a
Yeah.
like literally that amount of time late on the throttle, so it's up, it's one, like that sort of a thing, which is not helpful for traction either. But I do want to try to find
Yeah.
wheels and tires soon, like before winter, so I can give the tires I currently have on it a proper send off. If you kind of
Yes.
catch my meaning, Andrew.
I catch your drift.
Yeah. On that note,
Chad just leaves and immediately just logs off. I can't help those corny jokes.
but on that note, Andrew says things about Lotus, and you like Lotuses, and I'll be right back.
Yes. Um, so let's see, what else do we have in chat? That Ferrari has Lotus vibes. That's why you like it so much. I think, Anthony, you're talking about the F12. It does have a little bit of Lotusy sort of side straking going on to it. So I would agree with that. And on that same vein, good. Excuse me. So tired. It's been a long day. I just got back from vacation, and vacation with two young children is not a vacation. It is very much just a drain on energy. Um, so, on top of the Lotus conversation from Anthony, Andrew says, I love the older Lotuses, especially the ones back in the 1990s, and even the ones that a Toyota transmission in them. So, slight correction there. So, the ones that were back in the 90s, they made two in the 90s. Well, I mean, a couple in the 90s, but the two biggest ones were the Lotus Elise, which looked like a bug, which is really cool, and the Lotus Esprit, which was sort of an 80s carry through into the 90s. I think the Lotus Elan was made in the 90s as well, which is a front drive car. I want to say that was it for the 90s for Lotus, but the Elise and the Esprit were the two biggest ones. Those are the two most well known. Both very cool cars, both not necessarily the most reliable cars because Lotus. They did not have a Toyota transmission. They had a Toyota engine, I want to say, in the Elise. I think a Toyota engine, but the Toyota engine was most famous in the Evora when, oh man, 2007, 8, 9, it came out, I want to say. It was a while ago. But the Evora basically took a Toyota Camry V6 and they shoved that in the back mid-engine and various iterations of it. He also slapped a Edelbrock supercharger on it to make the Evora 400, and then they didn't have they had the Evora 400, and then the last one I think was the Evora GT, which had like 430 horsepower, which is really the one to get. The transmission, I don't know where the transmission came from in the Lotuses. Either way, the Elise through the Evora was a really cool era for Lotus, and I love the styling. It's just really cool. Oh, then there was the Lotus Exige, which is more of just like a super hardcore Elise, a little bit bigger, more interesting track focused sort of car, which I don't think we ever got here. If we did, it's very limited run. I know Ed Bolian told me one time that it was like you could get them here. They made them here, or they made them for here, but that's super limited, and they're going to go up in value because they're so rare here. But it wasn't it wasn't a Toyota transmission, I don't think. But they had at least the Exige, the Esprit back in the 90s, then the Evora, and now the Emira is the last one in that sort of lineage. and the Emir will be the last internal combustion one that Lotus does. Nate, to answer your question, didn't Lotus have a Miata twin in the 90s? Yes, that was the Elan. It wasn't necessarily a twin, but the Lotus Elan was a front-wheel drive car. And I want to say it was co-developed with Fiat. I don't remember what the car was. Lotus Elan Fiat something. But there was an older Elan. But there was a 90s version of the Lotus Elan. And it was sort of a Miata twin. I don't remember, because they had the Lotus Elan back in like the 60s, which was really like a sort of a revolutionary car. It was lightweight, convertible. So the Lotus Elan in the 60s was what the Mazda Miata was to the 90s. So like for our generation, the Mazda Miata sort of revolutionized cheap, affordable, convertible fun, which it existed in the 80s and 90s, but the Miata sort of really revolutionized it and made it approachable, and it made it so that people could afford to have that sort of fun, especially in Europe. Europe is huge for their small convertibles. They love them. Not the same way they do here in the US. Totally different scenario. But the Lotus Elan in the 60s did the same thing that the Miata did in the 90s. It sort of revolutionized things. It was lightweight, convertible, not something that people would have necessarily wanted, but people sort of tried to emulate a lot from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And it was sort of a car that brought about Lotus as a major player in production sports cars, if you will. Yes, that thing that Chad has thrown up on the screen. That is the 90s Lotus Elan. That was sort of their Miata fighter, if you will. Doug says Miata was amazing because it was a car that worked and wasn't front-wheel drive. The alternatives were trash here. And that's exactly accurate. That was the big thing. Because this car that you're seeing on screen, that's a Lotus Elan. If you think of Lotus and their sort of ethos of make it lightweight, make it fun, you would think this car would be rear-wheel drive, and you would be incorrect. It is a front-wheel drive car, and front-wheel drive cars can be very fun. Volvo 850 R, new Civic Type R, very fun cars. This was not one of them. This thing should have been rear-wheel drive, because that's a cool-looking little wedge, quite frankly. It's a neat, old, early 90s design that almost looks like a sort of a mini Ferrari, if you will. If that thing was rear-wheel drive, that's a much better car than also suffered from horrible reliability issues because of Lotus. But anyway, if that was rear-wheel drive, I think a lot more people would have them.
100%.
And I'll be right back as well. So, Chad, now your turn to be entertaining / annoying.
Damn it.
Mostly entertaining, though.
Anywho, here's the thing. Lotus made some cool stuff. I never got into Lotus. That's not a knock on them. I don't dislike them. I just never got into it. When I hear Lotus right now, I think of... There's actually a very interesting fact. So, we all know the original Tesla Roadster that sort of announced Tesla to the world. Like, hey, electric cars don't have to be boring. They can have good range. They can be a fun vehicle. Lotus, a lot of people think that was based on like an Elise or an Exige. Now, while the concept was similar, it was actually pretty much not ground up, but pretty dang close to Lotus building that bespoke for Tesla. Now, the original Roadster was $100,000, brand new, and those cars really. I haven't looked at the values, but they haven't really appreciated much, if any. They may have even depreciated slightly. The point is that best case scenario with those, you're making a couple bucks, right? Like nothing to write home about. If you had taken that same $100,000 that you put in to buy the Roadster into just Tesla stock, you would now have $36-ish million. And then it wouldn't matter. There was Haggerty did a really good. Jason Camisa did a really good. The Revelations series on Tesla and the Roadster and all that other sort of stuff, and like it's actually very, very, very interesting. And like I think when EVs have a place, and there's a place for them to be interesting, and I don't think it's in the Rimac model, right? Of crazy, stupid, ridiculous electric cars are just mind-bendingly fast. I do think there's a market for fun electric cars that are small. Smallish considering the weight and everything that goes into them. But like, you see companies like Koenigsegg making a small, lightweight motor that can make 330 some odd horsepower. Imagine that in something like, say, a Miata or a small. I mean, that's a recipe for a little rocket ship. That being said, it's getting quite intense outside. You probably see the flashes of lightning in my door there. There it is.
I just had that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like you get no rain.
Pretty bad.
It was like the weather gods were like, you're not going to get hardly any rain for 14 months. And then you're getting all of it. All at once.
Yeah, that's literally been. Well, yeah, because what was last summer? The drought was like 60 plus days where you didn't have rain. It was like 2 months of no rain. Yeah, but just
overall, there wasn't.
Continued.
And overall, there just wasn't a lot of rain. And that piggybacked into the winter.
Yeah.
Where we didn't get a ton of snow. And then we didn't have a particularly
basically
wet spring.
None.
So it's like, I always bring the thunder, Nate.
Chad brings no thunder, Nate. Get it right.
Listen, all thunder is audible, the noise lightning makes. So lightning happens very quick, therefore I bring the thunder. I'll let you guys decipher the meaning on your own time. But like, it was nuts how dry it was, and then just how much we've got. And it's like, we're supposed to get rain tomorrow. We're supposed to possibly get rain on Wednesday, respite on Thursday, possibly more on Friday.
What Chad is saying is New Jersey has turned into Miami.
Start rounding up those animals 2 by 2, folks.
Yes, nice little Noah's New Jersey.
Yeah, right. Andrew agrees 100%. I like the older ones, like Sharon Stone drove and Basic Instinct. And then went on to say he's not that much in EVs. I get the lack of enthusiasm for EVs. We all kind of grew up on what a fun car is. Makes us feel like we're a race car driver even though we're not. Makes a great noise, is engaging, fun, good steering feel, a manual box, and all that other stuff. All the things that, like, really EVs can only be fun to drive. But I think there's something to be said for the simplicity of it, relatively speaking, because obviously if you get an internal combustion engine wrong, it nukes itself, and you're generally safe-ish. Whereas an electric car, if you get that wrong, you're going to get fried. But I think there's a place, and I think we're going to see it relatively soon. Because, like, look at all the EVs out there, and they're all fairly big. Whether it be crossovers, whether it be the Model S from Tesla, whether it be the Lucid Air, whether it be all these things. Lucid's another company with the tiny ass electric motor that makes a ton of power. But I do think that a small, like I said, imagine like a Miata sized EV with, you don't need a lot of power because of the instantaneous nature of it. That's a pretty fun vehicle. And if like some of these EVs are getting, the mechanism is noisy, so it brings a different noise. But like that instant torque, that if you've driven an EV, you kind of know, is creates kind of a sense of drama by itself. It doesn't match a modern ICE car, but they're not to be slept on. Is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a Miata-sized EV with lower weight and like 200 to 250 horsepower would be a world-beating sort of scenario here. Because if you could keep that car to under 3,500 pounds with the instantaneousness of torque,
Mm-hmm.
and under 3,500 pounds for batteries is pretty low.
Right.
In the size of a Miata, like that's still a fun car. Like a Mustang EcoBoost is around 3,500 pounds. So like that's the sort of weight class you're playing in, right? And Mustang EcoBoost with tunes, a downpipe, and a couple of bolt-ons, you're pushing 400 horsepower and you're pushing low, mid 12s at the strip. So like imagine a Miata-sized car with that weight
And I would
bias,
maintain that
and like
that car with an electric motor would sound better than an EcoBoost Mustang.
agree, totally agree.
The
I think
four-cylinder
interesting
EcoBoost,
scenario.
for all of its engineering awesomeness, is a terrible sounding motor.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
But Doug
But
kind of
like,
echoes that. Like he goes,
yeah,
a
I was
100
just gonna
mile
say,
range sports EV would be fun and keep the weight down.
yeah,
Nate goes, the new
I would even
Volvo.
say, I would even say that you could probably get 150 to 200 miles of range with modern batteries right now,
I
while
mean, we're
keeping the
not.
rate with the weight relatively close. But the biggest thing that is going to be sort of the death knell for internal combustion is the solid state stuff, which is something that you've mentioned, we've mentioned, and talked about on stream before. But like once, and Toyota is sort of the big proponent of it right now because they're the ones putting a ton of R&D into it.
Ford and
Uh,
BMW are right there with it.
yes, but Toyota was sort of like the first one in, and now now BMW and Ford are like are sort of catching up in the sense of like time invested. Um, Once companies figure out solid state batteries, it is game over because solid state batteries will have between 500 to 1,000 miles of range per charge. That is a fact, and it is something that will happen. It is not something that you could make these lithium ion batteries say, oh, 400 or 500 miles of range. Cool. That's going to be the most that they can probably claim without going to 9 to 10,000 pounds for a sedan. Uh, Once solid state batteries kind of get figured out and put into these EVs, it is the end. It is the end, and people will immediately adopt those, especially if they can be charged the same way, especially if they can be utilized the same way as a normal commuter car with, why wouldn't they develop them that way? Because those batteries, think about how a solid state drive is versus a spinning drive for your computer. There's no spinning to it. It's just here's your drive, and it's just much easier as a mechanical component. It's the same thing for batteries. There's a lot less weight to it. There's a lot less mechanical componentry to it, and there's a lot less surface area to cover for the amount of capacity that the battery has. So once solid state takes hold, and it will, because they are researching it, and it will happen because they've done all the research to do lithium. Well, why not make it better and sell more of these things to people? Um, I mean that is the game. That is the game over scenario because the other big argument is lithium is horrible for the earth, both in mining and running and disposal, because everyone says, oh, EVs are great because they don't produce emissions. Well, yes, they don't produce emissions when they're in the cars, but you're forgetting about the after and before effects, which are horrible still for the earth. Solid state batteries, very different scenario in that respect, because you're not mining lithium, you're producing silicon, which is a way easier process to extract from the earth than lithium. So
Sodium ion
once that
batteries,
happens,
solid
game
state
over.
sodium ion batteries are also another one.
Correct. Yes. Either of those two scenarios is game over for ICE, and quite frankly, game over for lithium batteries, period, as far as cars are concerned.
Right.
Because no one's going to use lithium batteries once these things come out.
Well, look at what
Because they will
lithium
be a
did to nickel
totally
cad.
new technology that has way more. Are you going to buy a 200-mile range Nissan Leaf versus a 600-mile range Toyota Prius solid state, whatever the hell they call it? No, you're going to buy the Prius, of course, because it is triple the range for probably the same amount of cost.
Well, like the thing with that is, right? It's like the thing that's arguably interesting about EVs is that range has become kind of the new horsepower, because you can have a little bit of power for a long time, or you can have a lot of power for a short period of time. So like the flexibility
Right.
in being able to do that is like, it's not like in my car I could sit here and go, all right, I want to get 600 miles out of the gas tank, make 150 horsepower. It just can't do it, you know?
Right.
Look, there's kind of a confluence of like all these things. Like nickel cad we found was horrible for the environment, and it wasn't as dense. It didn't have as much energy density as lithium. We found lithium, and now we found that, oh, if we do this in the solid state, I won't get too technical with it, not only do we get more dense energy density, but we also have the ability to now recycle it, which becomes massive.
Yeah.
I think,
Recycling is huge. For
like
that.
you were saying, silicon based and sodium based batteries are huge going forward, because, and I don't mean to get, this isn't overly political, and I don't want it to get much beyond this, but if you happen to look at where the lithium reserves are, they kind of sort of coincide with a lot of the crude stores. They happen to coincide with a lot of, if you've noticed, there's a country gobbling up relationships with a lot of lithium, and that's China. Not
Right.
having to, being energy dependent, right? Like we have a crap ton of oil in this country, which is kind of what fueled the car and the industry and like the rise of the automobile and all this other stuff here. Having the ability to be self-sustaining as far as energy is concerned is going to become a massive thing going forward, if it's not already a massive thing, right? So like, and here's the thing, it becomes then an arms race of who can get theirs out first and who can do it the best, because a lot of times first gets the initial. If they become then transition into the people who have the reputation for doing it the best, they tend to stick around. If you're the first and then the second guy comes around and says, hey, we're doing it better, they kind of take the day. But it's definitely an interesting topic. Like I'm interested to see where it goes. Like nothing will replace the sound of an engine. Nothing will replace the sounds, the feels, the visceral experience that is driving a performance-oriented internal combustion car. But not for nothing. I mean, every day, like crossovers, I think by law should be some form of hybrid. Always. All of them.
I mean, why not? It sounds enthusiastic, ist to say like, oh, they should just be hybrids, but like, why shouldn't they be? They're commuter cars. You're getting internal combustion plus a range extender with a hybrid, essentially. Like, I don't.
Right.
I don't understand why they're not all hybrids,
Right.
quite
I
frankly.
mean, the biggest to put kind of a bow on it because we're rambling. Um, the point is that the technology of the electric vehicles is outpacing our ability to quote unquote fuel them.
Right.
And the technology to do so. Now, solid state does help with that because charge times are shorter. So your overall demand on the network is less. But that said, if let's just say, what's EV market share now? Like 6 to 8%, maybe more.
I want to say, yeah. Let's just call it six. So that's. I wanted to say 5 to 7. So let's just say six. Actually, hang on. I'll tell you.
Awesome. Andrew goes. I remember back in '08 when the LS400 hybrid was around 100,000 brand new. Uh, you're delving into Halo vehicles. The LS is Lexus's Halo vehicle and arguably one of the most important vehicles in America for American cars from a luxury standpoint. Um, Doug goes. Doug goes.
Oh, wow. More than both of us by double. 14% in 2022.
Okay, so let's just say 14% of the cars now, right? Let's say you double that, but theoretically speaking, they take half as long to charge. So your demand on the grid, and I'm oversimplifying this, but your demand on the grid remains the same. So now it's
Right.
over 1 in 4 cars sold are electric, and our demand on the grid is the same. The problem is you either is the high density areas or the low density areas. Like where we live, electric cars. Oh my gosh, what is happening over there, Greg?
Apparently a monsoon.
Holy shnikes!
Yeah.
Oh my
It,
gosh!
it just it just unloaded. The heavens unloaded over here. I'm gonna continue. I may have to take shelter soon.
Just pan the camera to your garage door. I'm kind of interested to see what happens.
Oh no, the garage door is closed with that sort of noise.
Yeah, just
Believe it or not.
it's just Bigfoot trying to get into your house. The point of, I guess, again, just to put a bow on it, it doesn't matter how fancy the batteries are. Eventually, we're going to hit a point of saturation where major changes have to happen to both the grid and how individuals charge their cars and come to their energy, right? Like we've mentioned full systems, right? Like Greg, go. I know you work from home most of the time now, but let's just say hypothetically during the day you go off, you go to work, you come back, you have solar panels, you have a battery in your garage, and that's how you charge get your car up to say a 50% charge. So again, you're having the demand on the network and stuff. That's one thing, but again, imagine if 1 in 4 people in New York City drive an electric car. Like
Oh yeah, that shouldn't happen. There's no way
that,
that could be
and
good for any sort of
ideally
grid.
suited. Uh, that's the first spot of EV adaptation should happen is densely populated areas, right? Because that's the most emissions.
Absolutely yes.
So it's like I said, it's very interesting. I'm very interested in the tech, but like there's just this massive elephant in the room, and we've said it here many times. In our lifetimes, synthetic fuel makes more sense than full EV or even 30% EV adoption. I mean, we're trending in
Yeah.
that direction, but it just there's a saturate everything has a saturation point, all right? You can only fill a cup up so much, and then we're getting kind of close to that.
Yeah.
Oh god, there's a lot of chat that I missed. Marcos, we're currently getting some aggressive storm warnings too. Yeah, it's
Yeah, if you look at the entire eastern seaboard and like just zoom out, There's what looks like there's a broken up hurricane sort of rotating over Montreal, and it goes all the way like way up through Canada and way down to the Carolinas. It's like
Yeah,
enormous, but it's not really a hurricane. It's just like a bunch of storms just swirling. It's really freaking crazy looking.
yeah. Anthony goes in. Anthony goes chat. 1 in 4 car owners vehicle ownership in New York City is low. Yes, but when you consider, let's just say 50% of several million people is still several million people. Uh,
Yeah, it's also not just ownership, it's also taxis and ride sharing, which would then also convert to that same grid,
right.
which is a significantly more amount of cars than ownership in New York.
To give an example, New Jersey Transit tried to meet a certain criteria of electric buses, and they couldn't make it work for like, and they have yards for this shit. So, like Anthony said, it gonna rain.
It gonna rain.
Uh,
Uh, good Family Guy reference.
Seth MacFarlane, comedic genius.
Also, question for you because I just got served this ad on Facebook. Toyota FJ Cruiser, 2012, 205,000 miles. What would you think that car would cost from a dealer?
8 to 12.
Interesting. Interesting. You'd be wrong, but interesting. 15 grand.
It's
Man, FJs just hold their value, man. It's crazy.
yeah.
I just did a search for them. So 2014 base, so no options. 81,000 miles, 37 grand. It's just like crazy like value holding. And they're like I love FJ Cruisers. I think they're cool, but they are not attractive. They're just a random SUV. Like they're just they're a really random car, but they have like their hold the value like insane. Like 2008 FJ Cruiser, 222,000 miles, 14,228.
I mean,
Like
those engines
it's
are not.
nuts.
Those engines are stout. Um,
Oh, they're so stout, but it's just so funny. Like it's just so crazy to see the prices. Because I remember reading in Car and Driver or somewhere online that like FJ Cruisers are one of the best vehicles that hold their value because everyone loves uh, vehicle, right? And they just hold their value very, very well because of the stoutness of the engine, the Toyota reliability, and yada yada yada. But man, it's more than I thought. Like, excuse me, I just sorted by highest price. 2011 Toyota FJ Cruiser base, 17,000 miles, 65 grand. Like, good God. I mean, I get it if you like FJ Cruisers, but there ain't no way I'm spending 65 grand on any FJ Cruiser ever that has ever existed. No freaking way. I would rather take that money and do anything else with it. I'd rather get a Lexus GX, jack it up on amazing BF Goodrich 90,000 inch tires with a freaking skid plate, a locker system, and freaking nasty raised suspension. And then also have another 45 grand left over for a sports car. Like, Jesus, that's insanity.
I'd rather just
65.
I'd rather just spend 9K and get something like this.
Right. That's the other thing. Get an old Taco or an old Ford for legitimately 1/8 of the cost, and then spend all the rest of that money doing super fun sports car things. Good lord.
I
Or not
just
even,
love the
not
early
even.
era
Or you
tacos
could
that look like they already came with a lift kit.
yeah, yes. You could do this truck like a Mustang, like your Mustang as you bought it, right? You bought your Mustang for what, 26, 27?
After everything, yes, it
Right. So
25
say
was
20,
purchase price of the
so
car plus taxes and
so
fees.
round up out the door 28 plus this round up out the door 10, right? 38. The FJ is 65. You could literally do what you've done to your Mustang and this car for the price of that friggin' FJ.
What was the total price on the FJ?
65.
Yes. Wait.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. 100%. Like, that's bananas. I would not buy that FJ ever. I mean, or you could even have your Mustang do nothing to it and have this taco, right? And have insurance money and car payment money on the side for the next 12 years.
I mean, we could have Tyrone's $20,000 crack party.
$450,000 crack party. Let's get it right here. Come on.
But I mean, you could
good
buy
God.
this and LS swap the fucker and keep like.
You could buy this and LS swap it 6 times over that price. That's crazy. I mean, FJ Cruisers are cool, man, but like they ain't 65 grand cool. And even the mid miles on it, like I'm scrolling down the list, like 49,000 miles, 42 grand. 85,000 miles, 41 grand. 50,000 miles, 40 grand. The market for FJ Cruisers is bananas. And I've never really looked into them until I just got served an ad, and I'm like, wow, this might be one of the craziest markets for a specific car I've ever seen.
I'm just good.
Is this a talk? Is this an LS swap taco?
It's not only that; it's an LS swap taco kit.
There's a kit from. Actually, I shouldn't be that surprised. Of course, it's an LS swap kit for a taco. This is an LS swap kit for my grandmother. Like, I mean, it's ridiculous.
I mean,
There's an LS swap kit for anything.
oh, especially if you go on like, I mean, CX Racing is kind of cheap, but,
Even so.
like, no word on if that keeps it. What if there's a
Yeah,
4x4?
and Anthony made a great point. 65K is a sweet truck and a pretty dope off-road trailer. Yeah, 100%. Like, you can get a sick truck and an off-roading trailer for 65K. Whereas you could just buy an FJ Cruiser with low mileage. No thanks. Hard pass. And on that note, I think it's time to end.
Yeah. Why is this? Anywho.
Doug, I don't know if FJ Cruisers had a manual option.
Pretty sure they
don't
did.
know. I think you're right. I want to say you're right,
I'm almost positive.
but I don't know.
I love it when they put pictures of a car and it's like, here's the car and it's a blurred background. Like, I immediately don't trust you. Yeah, I just found one. Manual.
Yeah, they did.
All right, Anthony, sorry we didn't get your Gran Turismo automotive video game topic. We will get to it because that's an interesting one
Yes.
that I want to discuss in more detail.
Agree, and it deserves time. So next week we'll do that one.
But I think for tonight, chaps, that's going to be it. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you.
And sent stars.
Yes.
Thank you.
I want to
Your guys' support means a lot. It really does.
Thank you to Anthony, Andrew, Justin, Jesse, for all sending stars, guys. If I missed anyone, I apologize. But other than that, guys, we'll catch you next week. 2 videos coming out this week, so definitely stay tuned for those. But for this one,
Maybe 3.
maybe.
We'll
And
see.
make sure you tell your friends next week, because I can't imagine how awesome it's going to be to watch Greg tune his car when it took him the better part of 3 hours to change a wheel on his car. So
Yes, but I've found my impact wrench, so that doesn't take nearly as long anymore.
I don't know if you should be using an impact wrench for the tune, but we'll find out.
Not the tune, the wheel, damn it!
But guys, it's been real. Thanks again so much for watching, and we will catch you